Hello, today is March 8th, and I wanted to discuss the 96-day lockout window that was established in 2023 by House Bill 103, I believe it was. Anyway, the this window, this exclusion window, is a structural wall that limits our choices. District court has upheld it for now, but the timeline it creates forces a party choice before candidates even file. It creates a kind of a tension with the Wyoming Constitution's promise of political equality. And of course, this is a unity and an awareness type of an issue now. And I guess it kind of affects the folks in the center, the people that lean purple, I guess would be the best way to say. You're maybe not all the way in the Democratic side and you're not all the way in the Republican side. Perhaps you're in the unaffiliated side and you simply have no voice in the primary. Let's talk about the road ahead. In Wyoming, we're used to the wind, maybe a little drifting snow, black ice, closing our highways. But now it's kind of a different barrier that's being built in our political landscape. And it's the 96-day lockout. If we're not paying attention, we're going to find ourselves stuck on the wrong side of a locked gate when it comes to our elections. In 2023, House Bill 103 moved the deadline to change party affiliation to 96 days before the primary. And this year, that's going to be May 13th. Supporters said that this purpose was to stop crossover voting, but when I look at the Wyoming Constitution, I can only see problems for the citizens. Our state's foundation is built on Article 1, Section 3, which teaches us that our rights are protected through political equality, and that laws affecting our political rights must be without distinction based on a condition or circumstance. Critics of the lockout argue that forcing a blind choice creates an unequal condition, and I tend to agree. The deadline to lock in a party affiliation, of course, is May 13th. The official filing period for a candidate does not even begin until May 14th, and then it runs and stops in May 29th. This means that this law, is pushing a party first decision instead of a candidate first choice. And I believe that, when we look to self governance, we should be looking at the candidate, not necessarily the party. A Laramie County District Court upheld this law in 2025, and the issue was contested. And I think the Supreme Court has ruled on this now. I'd have to check. And here's the part that troubles me most: when did our elections become about a party and not about the candidate? Wyoming used to be willing to cross over, not out of confusion, but out of judgment. You voted for who you felt was right. And I guess, the idea that the party is some type of purity test is it's wrong with me. We're not about parties. We should be about people. We have real examples of that in our own history. Ed Hirschler served as governor from 75 to 87, and during much of that area, Wyoming also kept Malcolm Wallet in the U.S. Senate as a Republican. Hirschler's a Democrat, Wallop's a Republican. Alan Simpson, another Republican from 79 to 97. Our neighbors chose the governor from one lane and senators from another because the vote was not only about a label, the vote was about the person we trusted to fight for Wyoming. That's what it should be about. It should be about the candidate, not the party. We saw it again recently. Governor Freudenthal served as governor as a Democrat from 2003 to 2011. And while he was there, our U.S. Senate seats were occupied by Craig Thomas, Republican, from 95 to 2007, and Enzi from 97 to 2021. Wyoming is doing what Wyoming has always done, and we're at our best weighing a candidate's character and competence when making a decision that fits Wyoming, not some national script. We need to stand for Wyoming, not something else. That's what representation means. A party doesn't represent the state. A candidate represents a state. A candidate does not represent a portion of Wyoming. A candidate, by definition, must represent the entire state of Wyoming. So when a system pushes us to pick a party before we even know is running, it nudges us away from the representation and towards a team. We don't select a team. That is incorrect. We need to look at the character of the people we're asking to represent us in our system of government. We're asking the wrong question. Instead of asking who will serve Wyoming well, we get pushed towards which team do I support? And teams are inherently dangerous to support. We need to be looking at the people within those teams. Endorsements pile on and it starts to feel like a closed circle. Support this person because this person supports that person. Trust this name because it's stamped on a list of powerful names. If you don't have those stamps, you're treated like you don't belong to the conversation. This approach makes me sick to my stomach because it reduces citizenship to a brand and turns voters into an audience instead of the deciding voice. We must decide for ourselves. We must begin to think for ourselves. We also have to consider our neighbors who were removed from the voter rolls. A report noted nearly 83,000 registrations were removed in 2024 by Chuck Gray. If a neighbor learns too late that he has been removed from the list, the timeline may become a barrier to whom he wants to vote for. A new registrant can choose at registration, but existing registered voters cannot change party until after May 13th. This creates two different rules for neighbors standing in the same line. That is the definition of political inequality. This is why unity is our defense. What I've called the purple window, the time to act before May 13th, when we can still talk to one another across the fence and make sure nobody's blindsided by a date on the calendar. We simply need to use our 7x7 rule and spread the word. We need to tell our friends and neighbors 7 times that May 13th is the deadline for our voice to be heard. Text it, say it at coffee, mention it at church. Bring it up at work, post it once a week. Don't. Transparency is a timeline. The clock is ticking towards May 13th. If we're a bundle of sticks, and right now that system is trying to pull us apart by our differences, we must ensure that every member in our grassroots family knows the timeline and understands the law. Let us make sure we are all inside the room before the door locks. And join our movement at scrollguard2026.org. Thank you for listening. We'll see you again tomorrow.